Anxious Attachment and Avoidant Detachment. A Journey to Secure Attachment Through Effective Relationship Communication and Attachment Theory by Elliot Chase. Introduction. In 1969, a woman named Mary Ainsworth set up a small room in a building at Johns Hopkins University. The room was filled with colorful toys, a wooden train, some blocks, and a stuffed animal. It looked like any other playroom, but it was actually a stage for one of the most famous psychological tests in history. A mother and her 12-month-old baby would enter the room. For a few minutes, the baby would play while the mother sat nearby. Then, a stranger would enter. A few minutes later, the mother would quietly leave the room, leaving her baby alone with the stranger. After a short while, the mother would return. Mary Ainsworth watched through a one-way mirror. She wasn't just looking at whether the baby cried when the mother left. She was looking at something much more important. What did the baby do when the mother came back? She saw 3 very different reactions. Some babies were happy to see their mothers. They would hug her, get a quick refill of comfort, and then go back to playing with the blocks. These babies were secure. But other babies reacted strangely. Some would rush to their mothers but then arch their backs or push her away. They were angry and crying, and even when the mother held them, they couldn't find peace. They were anxious. Then there were the babies who didn't seem to care at all. When the mother returned, they didn't look up. They kept playing with their toys, their little bodies stiff. But when researchers checked their heart rates, their hearts were racing. They were just as stressed as the crying babies, but they had learned to hide it. These babies were avoidant. This experiment, called the strange situation, changed everything we know about love. It proved that the way we are treated as tiny infants creates a blueprint in our brains. That blueprint tells us whether other people are safe, whether our needs matter, and whether we can count on someone to stay when things get hard. If you are reading this, you might feel like one of those babies in the playroom. Perhaps you are the one who feels like you are too much, constantly checking your phone for a text, or feeling a deep pit in your stomach when a partner seems distant. Or maybe you are the one who feels like people are always suffocating you, making you want to pull away and find a quiet room where no one can ask anything of you. This book is for anyone who is tired of the dance of distance. It is for the person who feels like their heart is a battlefield and they are losing the war. The invisible strings of the heart. Most people think that if a relationship is hard, it's because they picked the wrong person. They think if they just found someone better, or if they were less crazy, everything would be fine. They blame their personality, their looks, or their bad luck. The truth is much simpler and much more scientific. You aren't crazy, and you are cold. You are reacting to a biological system that is hardwired into your brain. This system is called the attachment system. Think of it like an invisible string that connects you to the people you love. For some people, that string is strong and flexible. They can walk far away, but they know the string won't break. For others, the string feels like it's about to snap at any second, so they pull on it constantly to make sure the other person is still there. And for some, the string feels like a leash that is too tight, so they try to cut it just so they can breathe. When these 2 types of people, the pullers and the runners, get together, it creates a painful cycle. The puller feels a tiny bit of distance and panics. They text more, they ask, "Are you okay?" and they demand more time. The runner feels this pressure and panics in a different way. They feel trapped. They stop answering texts. They stay late at work. They get quiet. This makes the puller pull harder, which makes the runner run faster. It is an exhausting loop that ruins perfectly good relationships. It leaves both people feeling alone, even when they are sitting on the same couch. The promise of the secure base: you do not have to live this way. Your brain is not a finished sculpture. It is more like a garden. You can pull out the weeds of fear and plant new seeds of security. By the time you finish this book, you will no longer be a victim of your blueprint. You will become what we call a secure connector. A secure connector is someone who knows how to ask for what they need without yelling or crying. They are someone who can hear a partner's request for space without feeling like the world is ending. They know how to calm their own racing heart. You will learn how to turn your relationship from a place of stress into a secure base. In the world of science, a secure base is a person who gives you the courage to go out and explore the world because you know you have a safe place to return to. When you have a secure base, you perform better at work, you have a better immune system, and you live longer. This isn't just self-help advice. This is based on decades of research by people like John Bowlby, who studied how children survived in the wake of war, and Harry Harlow, who discovered that the need for a hug is actually more important than the need for food. We will use their discoveries to build a roadmap for your own life. Meet Maya. To understand how this looks in the real world, we have to look at Maya. Maya is 32 years old and lives in a bright, sunlit studio apartment. By all accounts, she is a success. She is a high-end graphic designer who creates beautiful logos for big companies. She is organized, smart, and has a group of friends who adore her. But when it comes to love, Maya feels like a total disaster. Right now, Maya is sitting at her drafting table. A half-finished project is on her screen, but she isn't looking at it. Instead, she is staring at her phone. She sent a text to Mark 6 hours ago. It was a simple text. "Hey, do you want to grab dinner tonight?" At 2:14 p.m., the little icons at the bottom of the screen changed. The word read appeared. Mark saw the text, but he didn't reply. It is now 8:14 p.m. Maya's heart is thumping against her ribs like a trapped bird. Her mind is spinning 1,000 stories. Is he mad at me? Did I say something wrong on Sunday? Maybe he realized he doesn't actually like me. Maybe he's with someone else right now. Is he ever going to text back? She feels a desperate urge to send another text. She wants to write, "Is everything okay? Why are you ignoring me?" She knows, deep down, that this will probably make things worse. She knows Mark hates drama. But the pain in her chest is so sharp that she feels like she might explode if she doesn't do something. Maya is in what we call an anxious spiral. Her brain thinks she is in a life-or-death situation. It doesn't know she's just waiting for a text about dinner. It thinks she has been abandoned in the woods and is about to be eaten by a wolf. Mark, on the other hand, is at home. He saw the text. He likes Maya, but he had a long day at work. When he saw her message, he felt a strange sense of pressure. He felt like if he said yes, he'd have to perform, to be on, to give more of himself when he already felt empty. So he put the phone down. He thought, "I'll deal with that later." He doesn't realize that his later is causing Maya a literal physical crisis. He doesn't realize that every hour he stays silent, he is adding bricks to a wall between them. Maya and Mark are stuck in the anxious avoidant trap. Throughout this book, we are going to follow Maya as she learns why her brain does this and how she can stop it. We will see her learn to put the phone down, breathe, and find her own invisible anchor. We will watch her move from being a puller to being someone who is truly secure. The journey ahead this book is divided into 3 stages: understanding, challenge, and mastery. First, we will look at the history of why we love the way we do. We will look at the work of John Bowlby, a man who fought against the idea that babies should be tough. We will look at Harry Harlow's famous monkeys to see why we all need contact comfort. You will learn why your neediness is actually a biological superpower that just needs a little bit of training. Next, we will move into the challenge phase. This is where we get to work. You will learn the language of needs. Most of us were never taught how to say what we want. We either say nothing and get angry, or we say too much and scare people away. I will show you how to use effective communication to get your needs met without a fight. Finally, we will reach mastery. We will look at the nervous system, the actual wires in your body that control your fear. We will explore polyvagal theory in a way that is easy to understand, showing you how to co-regulate with a partner. We will move toward radical vulnerability, which is the secret sauce to a relationship that lasts forever. You might feel like your heart is broken or that you are just bad at relationships. I want you to know that is not true. You simply have an old map for a new world. The feelings you have, the fear, the loneliness, the urge to run are all signals. They are your body trying to protect you. In the chapters to come, we are going to teach those signals a new language. We are going to turn that dance of distance into a secure waltz. You deserve to feel safe. You deserve to be seen. You deserve a love that feels like a home, not a cage. Let's begin. Chapter 1: 3 Pillars of Human Connect. To the nursing staff, parents are permitted to visit their children for exactly 30 minutes on Sunday afternoons. Under no circumstances are parents to pick up, hold, or coddle the infants. Physical contact leads to the spread of germs and encourages a weak, emotional character in the child. Discipline and routine are the only paths to a healthy upbringing. This note sat on a hospital desk in the 1940s. Back then, the smartest people in the world believed that love was just a side effect of being fed. They thought that if you held a baby too much, you would ruin them. They believed that humans were like machines: give them fuel, give them a clean place to sleep, and they will work just fine. This idea did not just stay in hospitals. It leaked into our homes, our schools, and eventually, our romantic relationships. We grew up hearing that we should be strong and independent. We were told that needing someone else was a sign of a clingy personality or a broken heart. This is the great myth of the modern world, the idea that we are meant to stand entirely alone. The lie of the lone wolf. Most people carry a heavy weight of shame because they feel too much. They feel bad when a partner doesn't text back. They feel a pit in their stomach when someone they love pulls away. Society looks at this and calls it neediness. We are told to just love ourselves first, and that our happiness should never depend on another person. This sounds like good advice on a greeting card, but it is biologically impossible. Our brains are not designed to be solo islands. We are social animals. From the moment we are born to the last breath we take, our nervous systems are looking for a preferred other. This is a person who makes us feel safe, seen, and protected. The myth of the lone wolf suggests that being secure means you don't need anyone. In reality, the most secure people in the world are those who know exactly who they can count on. They aren't independent because they are alone. They are independent because they have a solid foundation to come home to. When you have a secure base, you can take bigger risks in the world because you know that if you fall, someone will be there to catch you. If you have ever felt weak for wanting more closeness, you are not broken. You are simply human. Your brain is doing exactly what it was evolved to do. It is trying to keep you alive. The man who listened to the silence in the years following World War II, a doctor named John Bowlby, was asked to study children who had lost their parents. These children had clean beds, they had warm meals, they had doctors who checked their reflexes and gave them medicine. By every medical standard of the time, they should have been thriving. But they were. Bowlby walked through the wards and saw something haunting. The children were quiet, they weren't playing, they weren't fighting, they were simply fading away. He noticed a specific pattern. When a child was first separated from their mother, they would scream and cry. They would kick the doors and beg for someone to come. This was protest behavior. It was an active, loud attempt to get their safe person back. When no one came, the children fell into a deep silence. They stopped eating. Their growth slowed down. Some of them even died, despite having no physical illness. Bowlby realized that the medical establishment was wrong. Food and shelter were not enough. Human connection was not a luxury, it was a biological requirement. He began to develop a theory that would change everything. He called it attachment theory. Bowlby argued that humans are born with an attachment system. Think of it like a thermostat in your brain. It is always checking the room for the person you love. If that person is close and responsive, the thermostat stays at a comfortable temperature. You feel calm, creative, and brave. But if that person disappears or becomes cold, the thermostat shoots up. Your brain goes into a state of alarm. You begin to do whatever it takes to get that connection back. The monkey's choice. While Bowlby was watching children in London, a researcher named Harry Harlow was setting up a very different kind of study in America. Harlow wanted to prove once and for all what really mattered: food or touch. He worked with rhesus monkeys, which are very similar to humans in how they process emotions. Harlow created 2 surrogate mothers for the baby monkeys. The first mother was made of cold, hard wire. However, she held a bottle of milk. If the baby monkey wanted to eat, he had to go to the wire mother. The second mother was made of soft, warm cloth. She had a light bulb inside her to provide heat, and her skin was fuzzy. But this mother had no food. She held no bottle. She offered nothing but contact comfort. If the old independence myth were true, the monkeys would have spent all their time with the wire mother because she provided the physical nutrition needed for survival. But that is what happened. The baby monkeys spent nearly 22 hours a day clinging to the cloth mother. They would only jump over to the wire mother for a few minutes to gulp down milk, and then they would immediately leap back to the soft, warm mother, who offered them nothing but a place to feel safe. Harlow took it a step further. He created a mechanical monster, a scary robot that made loud noises and moved its arms. When Harlow put the monster in the cage, the baby monkeys didn't run to the mother with the food. They didn't care about eating when they were scared. They ran to the cloth mother. They wrapped their arms around her and buried their faces in her soft fur. Once they felt the comfort of the cloth mother, something amazing happened. Their heart rate slowed down. Their shaking stopped. Slowly, they would turn around and look at the monster. Some of them even grew brave enough to jump off the mother and yell back at the robot. The cloth mother was their secure base. Because they had a safe place to go, they were able to face the scary thing in front of them. Without her, they would simply collapse in a corner and rock back and forth in terror. Harlow's experiments were heart-wrenching, but they proved a vital point. The need for comfort and closeness is more powerful than the need for food. When you are reaching for your partner, you aren't being childish. You are a baby monkey looking for the cloth mother in a world full of mechanical monsters. The invisible harbor. This brings us to the core concept of a healthy life, the secure base. Imagine a small boat in a vast, stormy ocean. If that boat has no harbor to return to, the captain will be terrified. They will spend all their energy just trying to stay afloat. They won't explore new lands. They won't go looking for treasure. They are in survival mode. But if that captain knows there is a harbor nearby, a place with thick stone walls where the water is always calm and the lights are always on, everything changes. The captain can sail far out into the deep sea. They can face the waves and the wind because they know that if the storm gets too big, they have a place where they are safe. In a relationship, a secure base does three things. It provides a safe haven. When you are hurt, tired, or scared, your partner is the person you go to for comfort. They don't judge you for being weak. They hold the space for you to recover. It offers secure base support. Your partner encourages you to go out into the world. They want you to succeed at your job, have hobbies, and grow as a person. They aren't threatened by your independence because they know you will always come back to the harbor. It creates proximity maintenance. You stay close to each other, not because you are trapped, but because you want to be. When these three things are missing, we start to feel the dance of distance. One person feels the harbor is closing its gates, so they start to scream and kick at the walls, anxious attachment. The other person feels like the boat is too crowded and they are being smothered, so they sail away into the fog, avoidant detachment. Neither person is bad. They are both just trying to find a way to feel safe. Maya's studio in a small, sunlit studio on the third floor of an old brick building, Maya sat at her drafting table. She was one of the most talented graphic designers in the city. Her clients loved her. She could take a messy idea and turn it into a beautiful, clean logo in hours. She was successful, smart, and by all outward appearances, completely in control of her life. But her phone was sitting next to her coffee cup, and it felt like a ticking bomb. She had sent a text to Mark 6 hours ago. It was a simple question. "Hey, do you want to grab dinner on Friday?" Mark had seen it. The little read receipt was staring back at her, but there was no reply. Maya tried to focus on the curves of a font she was designing, but her hands were shaking. She felt a familiar heat rising in her chest. Her mind started to spin. Is he pulling away? Did I say something wrong on Tuesday? Maybe he's realized I'm too much for him. Maybe he's with someone else right now. She picked up the phone. She deleted a draft of a second text. Then she wrote another one. "Is everything okay? You've been quiet." She deleted that one too. She felt like a disaster. She had read all the books that told her she should be higher value and detached. She told herself she was being needy and pathetic. She felt a deep sense of shame that a 32-year-old woman could be brought to tears by a missing text message. Maya didn't know about Harry Harlow's monkeys yet. She didn't realize that her brain was currently looking for the cloth mother. She didn't understand that the read receipt had triggered her state of alarm, and her nervous system was reacting as if she were a child lost in a supermarket. To Maya, this felt like a character flaw. To her biology, it was a survival crisis. She looked at her phone one more time. The blue light reflected in her eyes. She felt the urge to call him 10 times in a row to protest, the silence until he finally spoke, and the alarm in her brain turned off. The biological truth: if you find yourself in Maya's position, the first thing you must do is stop blaming yourself. We live in a culture that treats emotional needs like a choice. We think we can decide not to care if someone pulls away. But you cannot decide to stop your heart from beating faster, and you cannot decide to stop your attachment system from seeking safety. Here are the 3 pillars of connection you must understand. Attachment is a fact, not a choice. You are biologically wired to seek a secure base. This is not a sign of emotional immaturity. It is a sign that you are a mammal. The anxious spiral is a survival strategy. When Maya feels the need to text Mark repeatedly, she isn't trying to be crazy. She is trying to re-establish proximity. Her brain thinks that if she loses the connection to her preferred other, she is in physical danger. Security leads to independence. The irony of attachment is that the more we can depend on someone, the more independent we become. If Maya knew for a fact that Mark was her secure base, she wouldn't be staring at her phone. She would be finishing her design work. The goal of this journey isn't to learn how to not need people. The goal is to learn how to choose the right people to need and how to communicate those needs in a way that builds a bridge instead of a wall. The story continues. Maya finally put her phone face down on the table. She took a deep breath, but the pit in her stomach didn't go away. She felt like she was standing on the edge of a cliff, waiting for someone to pull her back. She didn't send the text. Not yet. But she also didn't know how much longer she could hold out. She felt like a boat drifting further and further from the harbor, and the fog was getting thicker. She didn't know it yet, but the dance of distance she was performing with Mark was a routine they had both been practicing since they were infants. To change the dance, she would first have to understand the music that was playing in her own head. Maya reached for her coffee, her eyes drifting back to the phone. The alarm was still ringing. The mechanical monster was in the room, and she was still looking for the cloth mother. The journey to the secure harbor was just beginning, and the first step was the hardest: admitting that she was never meant to sail this ocean alone. Chapter 2: Why Does Love Feel Like Survive? In the late 1960s, a woman named Mary Ainsworth sat behind a one-way mirror in a small room at Johns Hopkins University. At the time, the world of psychology was a man's club, and many of those men thought they had figured out exactly how children worked. The popular advice of the day was cold and clinical. Experts told parents that picking up a crying baby would spoil them. They believed that showing too much affection would create a weak, dependent adult. They viewed human emotions as something to be controlled and managed, like a machine that needed regular oiling but no warmth. Mary didn't fit into this world. She was a Canadian psychologist who had spent years in Uganda, sitting on dirt floors in small villages, watching mothers and their infants. While the famous doctors in London and New York were looking at charts and data, Mary was looking at the way a mother's voice calmed a baby's frantic breathing. She noticed things the men missed. She saw that the babies who were held the most and whose cries were answered the fastest didn't become spoiled. Instead, they became the most adventurous and independent. When she returned to Baltimore, she decided to prove what she had seen. She created a study called The Strange Situation. It was a simple setup. A mother and her one-year-old child would play in a room filled with toys. Then, a stranger would enter. The mother would leave the room for a few minutes, leaving the child with the stranger, and then she would return. Mary wasn't interested in the toys or the stranger. She was watching the reunion. She wanted to see what happened the exact moment the mother walked back through the door. Most children, the ones Mary called secure, would cry when mom left, but they would rush to her when she returned, get a quick hug, and then go back to playing. They used their mother as a secure base. But there was another group of children that puzzled everyone. When their mothers returned, these children didn't just run for a hug. They were inconsolable. They would scream and reach out to be picked up, but as soon as they were in their mother's arms, they would kick, arch their backs, or even slap her. They were desperate for her closeness, yet they seemed furious at her for leaving. They couldn't be calmed down. They stayed in a state of high alert, unable to go back to their toys. Mary called this anxious ambivalent attachment. This was the moment the world first saw the blueprint for what we now call the anxious attachment style. These children weren't bad or difficult. They were survivalists. They had learned that their caregiver was inconsistent, sometimes there, sometimes not. To stay safe, they had to turn up the volume of their distress to make sure they weren't forgotten. They had to stay hypervigilant, watching every move their mother made, because they never knew when the next abandonment might happen. The modern panic 32 years later, Maya sits in her graphic design studio, feeling exactly like one of the infants in Mary Ainsworth's study. Her mother in this scenario is Mark, the man she has been seeing for 4 months. Mark is kind, funny, and attractive, but he has a habit of disappearing into his own world. 6 hours ago, Maya sent Mark a text. "Hey, I saw that new exhibit is opening tonight. Wanna go?" Mark saw the message. Maya knows this because the read receipt is staring back at her. For 6 hours, she has checked her phone every 10 minutes. Each time she sees the empty gray space where a reply should be, her heart beats a little faster. Her chest feels tight, like there is a heavy weight pressing on her lungs. She tries to focus on the logo she is designing for a client, but the colors look wrong. Her mind keeps drifting back to a single, terrifying question: what did I do wrong? She begins to replay their last date. Did I talk too much about work? Did I seem too eager when I suggested the weekend trip? Maybe he realized I'm not as cool as he thought. This is what we call an activation trigger. For someone with an anxious attachment style, a delayed text message isn't just a delay. It is a biological alarm bell. Her nervous system has entered a fight or flight state. Her brain is telling her that her connection to Mark, her preferred other, is in danger. In the wild, being separated from the group meant death. In Maya's studio, her brain is treating this unanswered text as a life-or-death emergency. Maya is experiencing hypervigilance. This is a state where your internal radar is turned up to the highest possible sensitivity. You become an expert at reading tiny shifts in your partner's tone, the speed of their replies, or the way they look at you. You are looking for any sign of threat, which, in this case, is the threat of being left behind. The crying and the clinging by hour 7, Maya can't take it anymore. The pressure in her chest is too much. She needs to do something to stop the pain. She picks up her phone and types, "Is everything okay? You've been quiet today." 10 minutes pass. No reply. She sends another, "If you don't want to go to the exhibit, just say so. You don't have to ignore me." Still nothing. Now the panic turns into a mix of anger and desperation. She calls him. It goes to voicemail. She hangs up and sends a final, long text. "I don't understand why you do this. It's so disrespectful of my time. If you aren't interested in this anymore, just tell me instead of playing games." This is what Mary Ainsworth saw in the children who kicked and screamed when their mothers returned. It is called protest behavior. Protest behavior is any action we take to try to force our partner to reestablish contact. It is a frantic attempt to get a reaction, any reaction, that proves the connection is still there. For an infant, it's crying and clinging. For an adult like Maya, it looks like calling or texting multiple times, withdrawing and acting cold to get the partner to notice. Keeping score, e.g., "He took 3 hours to reply, so I'm going to wait 6. Threatening to leave the relationship just to see if the partner will beg them to stay. To the outside world, or to a partner like Mark, this behavior looks crazy or unstable. But if we look at it through the lens of attachment theory, it is actually a very logical response to a perceived loss of safety. Maya isn't trying to be a disaster. She is trying to survive. She is using the only tools she has to try to bring Mark back into her secure base. The science of the spiral. Why does Maya's brain react this way while others might just think, "Oh, he's probably busy at work"? The answer lies in the way our brains are wired from childhood. When Mary Ainsworth studied those anxious ambivalent babies, she found a pattern in their home lives. Their parents weren't necessarily mean or abusive. Often, they were very loving. But they were inconsistent. Sometimes, when the baby cried, the parent would rush over and be incredibly warm and attentive. Other times, the parent might be distracted, tired, or emotionally unavailable, and the baby's cries would go unanswered. Because the baby never knew which version of the parent they were going to get, they couldn't relax. They learned that the only way to get their needs met was to be loud. They had to stay in a state of constant activation. If they let their guard down, they might miss the window of time when the parent was actually available. As adults, this activation becomes our default setting in romance. We develop a sensitive nervous system. Our brains are literally better at detecting signs of rejection than people with secure attachment. In a study using brain scans, researchers found that people with anxious attachment showed much higher activity in the areas of the brain associated with pain and emotion when they felt excluded or ignored. For Maya, the read receipt isn't just data. It is a physical wound. Her brain is processing social rejection in the same way it would process a broken arm. This is the dance of distance in its early stages. Maya pursues because she is in pain. But as she pursues, sending text after text, she often triggers the other side of the trap. If Mark has an avoidant attachment style, which we will explore in the next chapter, Maya's protest behavior feels like an attack. He feels smothered and crowded, so he pulls away even further to protect his own sense of safety. Maya's attempt to get closer actually pushes the very person she loves away. This is the tragedy of the anxious avoidant cycle. The more she fears abandonment, the more she acts in ways that make abandonment more likely. Identifying your tripwires to break this cycle, we have to start by recognizing our activation triggers. These are the specific events that flip the switch from calm Maya to protest behavior Maya. Most of us have a handful of tripwires that send us into a spiral. For Maya, it's the read receipt. For someone else, it might be 1. A partner mentioning a night out with friends without inviting them. 2. A change in the tone of a voice, a short answer or a lack of emojis. 3. A partner being unusually quiet during dinner. 4. Plans being canceled, even for a very good reason like work or illness. When one of these tripwires is hit, the body reacts before the mind can think. You might feel a drop in your stomach, your hands might start to shake, or you might get a sudden, intense urge to fix things immediately. Maya's realization began when she stopped looking at her behavior as a character flaw and started looking at it as a biological response. She wasn't needy, she was activated. This shift in perspective is the first step.